In the dark hours of the early morning, he met with the chief cook of the prison. "Ensure Jakonde eats this as breakfast," Ayo instructed, handing over a meal laced with a slow-acting poison. "Just treat it like any other tax, nothing more, and you'll be handsomely rewarded." The cook, a grim maze flitting across his broad face, nodded. Yet, as Ayo turned to leave, a spark of conscience ignited within the cook. At dawn, he sought an audience with King Adegoke, revealing the councilman's heinous plot. Tunde, a keen-eyed young man newly arrived from the city, sauntered into the local bar. It was a rustic establishment alive with the laughter and chatter of the village folk. The air was thick with the scent of palm wine and roasted peanuts, creating an ambience that felt both inviting and distinctly local. As Tunde approached the bar, he noticed an elderly man seated near the entrance. His appearance was pitiable, clad in tattered clothes that had seen better days, with a bowl laid out in front begging for alms. The man's movements were slow and encumbered by an evident limp, his leg dragging slightly as he adjusted his seat. "Barkeep, who is the old man by the door? Seems like he's a fixture here," Tunde inquired, nodding towards the man as he took a stool. The bartender, with a friendly smile, poured a drink before answering. "Ah, that's old Jakonde. The poor man has been here longer than I can remember. He's harmless as a fly and quiet as a shadow. Why do you ask?" "Just curious," Tunde replied, his gaze lingering on Jakonde. He seems interesting." A few days later, Tunde positioned himself early at the bar. He watched as villagers dropped coins into Jakonde's bowl, their faces wearing the soft expressions of sympathy and charity. Yet, something didn't sit right with Tunde. As the sun began to set and he prepared to leave, he found himself unintentionally trailing behind Jakonde. Curiosity soon piqued Tunde's interest as he maintained a discreet distance. To his astonishment, Jakonde didn't head to any modest abode, as one might expect of a beggar. Instead, he walked towards the outskirts of the village and entered a large, well-furnished house that stood in stark contrast to his supposed penury. This surprising turn of events deepened Tunde's suspicions and sparked a determination to uncover the truth behind Jakonde's double life. The next day, as Jakonde settled into his usual spot, Tunde approached him. "Jakonde, every day you sit here watching everyone. Don't you get tired?" Jakonde smiled faintly and leaned forward, his voice low but clear. "Not really. I see a field ripe for harvest. In this village, there are many secrets, many opportunities. You won't understand, my friend." Tunde smiled and hailed him. However, inwardly, he became more motivated by their conversation and felt a renewed determination to see what Jakonde was up to. Few weeks later, the village buzzed with the somber excitement of an impending high-profile funeral. Tunde found himself once again at the local bar, drawn in by the vibrant energy of the gathering crowd. Just then, a couple, elegantly dressed and clearly not from around, pushed open the creaking door and made their way to a corner booth. The couple, visibly stressed yet determined, began discussing their plans. Their voices, filled with the excitement of planning, occasionally rose above the general hum of the bar, drawing brief glances from other patrons. They spoke of building an elaborate edifice in honor of their deceased father, a project that would serve as a monumental memorial. The figures they were mentioning were staggering, reflecting both their affluence and their willingness to spare no expense. As they conversed, Tunde's gaze shifted between the couple and old Jakonde, who, true to form, had positioned himself strategically by the entrance. The old beggar's ears seemed to perk up at the mention of the substantial sums involved. Tunde watched as Jakonde's eyes narrowed, a subtle but definite sign of his intense focus on the couple's conversation. It was clear that Jakonde was mentally noting every detail. The more he observed Jakonde, the less he believed in the man's frail and needy facade. After the couple left, Tunde remained seated, his fingers drumming on the wooden counter, wrestling with his thoughts. He knew something was amiss and the temptation to warn the couple was strong, but something held him back. The need for concrete evidence. Deciding to take a different approach, Tunde left the bar and made his way to the king's palace. King Adewale, a wise and seasoned ruler, listened intently as Tunde shared his observations and suspicions about Jakonde. His brow furrowed with concern. "This is a serious accusation, young man," the king said gravely. "Jakonde has been a quiet, undisturbing presence in our village for many years." Tunde nodded, his resolve hardening. "I understand, Your Majesty, but I've seen things that don't add up. He lives far too lavishly for a beggar." The king summoned his most trusted aides, a trio of seasoned guards known for their discretion and loyalty. "Guard the couple's house in secret," he commanded. "Observe Jakonde closely and report any suspicious activity. We must protect our guests and uncover the truth behind these allegations." The guards took their positions discreetly, meddling into the shadows as night fell over the village. The couple's house, a modest but elegant structure near the village outskirts, became the center of a silent vigil. 3 nights later, under a cloak of darkness, a figure approached the couple's home. The guards watched, tensed and ready, as the figure moved with surprising agility and purpose. As he came into the moonlight, the guards' eyes widened in shock. It was Jakonde, but not the frail old man he pretended to be during the day. Gone was the limp and the hunched shoulders. Instead, he moved with the stealth and precision of a seasoned operative. Jakonde reached into his robe, pulling out a small metallic object that glinted under the light. It was a key to the couple's house. How he acquired it, they could only guess. Quiet as a cat, he unlocked the door and slipped inside. The guards sprung into action, communicating silently with hand signals before converging on the house. They caught Jakonde inside, standing in the living room with only a hunter's gun slung across his shoulders and a small bag. "Jakonde!" the lead guard barked, his voice breaking the night stillness. "You are under arrest. You'll come with us without resistance." Jakonde turned, his face a mask of calm defiance. "Ah, you can have me, but know this. I am but a small piece in a much larger puzzle. You cannot stop what is already in motion." With Jakonde in custody, the guards searched him and found more incriminating items. Maps of the village with certain areas marked, list of names, and a schedule of the couple's activities. It was clear that Jakonde was not just a beggar, but a key figure in dangerous plots. The next day, Jakonde stood before the king, his true nature exposed. The king, grim-faced and resolute, listened as the evidence was presented. As the king thanked Tunde for his bravery and insight, the young man knew his role in the tale was far from over as he mulled over what Jakonde had said earlier. Earlier that day, among the assembly, Councilman Ayo stood close to the king. His expressions cooled into one of concerned surprise. Yet, under the cover of the collective distraction, his eyes darted to Jakonde, sending silent commands. He was a high-ranking official in King Adegoke's cabinet, revered and trusted with the kingdom's most sensitive matters. However, beneath his polished veneer lurked a heart corrupted by greed. That fateful evening at the bar, where their sinister collaboration had begun, replayed in Ayo's mind. He had seen Jakonde, then a pitiable figure, and had whispered promises of power and wealth if Jakonde could serve his dark ambitions. "Think of it, Jakonde," he had said, his voice a seductive hiss. "You can rise from your ashes like a phoenix, while they still pity you and fill your bowl with their meager coins." Now, as night cloaked the village in shadows, Ayo navigated the quiet paths to the detention center. Inside, he found Jakonde hunched in his cell, the weight of his imminent doom bowing his shoulders. Ayo's voice was a whisper of feigned reassurance. "Just hold your tongue a little longer. I'll get you out, I promise." Jakonde, eyes narrow and calculating, nodded slowly. He understood the stakes, silence for survival. Yet, as Ayo's footsteps receded, the air seemed to thicken with the stench of impending betrayal. Due to his nature, Ayo's plan to silence Jakonde permanently was already in motion. In the dark hours of the early morning, he met with the chief cook of the prison. "Ensure Jakonde eats this as breakfast," Ayo instructed, handing over a meal laced with a slow-acting poison. "Just treat it like any other tax, nothing more, and you'll be handsomely rewarded." The cook, a grim maze flitting across his broad face, nodded. Yet, as Ayo turned to leave, a spark of conscience ignited within the cook. At dawn, he sought an audience with King Adegoke, revealing the councilman's heinous plots. As the sun rose, casting a pale glow into the dingy room, Ayo appeared, carrying the poisoned meal, which the cook gave him with a confidence born of countless deceptions. His laughter echoed off the stone walls, a sound soon smothered by the solemn steps of the king and his guards. Placing the tray through the bars of Jakonde's cell, Ayo sneered. "Eat well, friend. It's a special meal, just for you." Before Jakonde could touch the food, the king stepped forward, his presence like a shadow of doom. "Councilman Ayo," he boomed, his voice resonant with authority and betrayal. "If it's such a special meal, why don't you demonstrate its quality?" Ayo's facade crumbled, his face paling, eyes darting wildly for an escape that didn't exist. "My king, I insist, it's for Jakonde. I'm not hungry," he stammered. "Eat!" King Adegoke commanded, the single word a verdict. The room tightened around Ayo, the walls closing in as the guards previously hidden stepped forward. Jakonde watched, a twisted smile coiling his lips, as the man who had promised him freedom now faced his own fatal trap. With trembling hands, Ayo lifted the spoon, his fate sealed with each hesitant motion. The room held its breath, the silence a thick cloak. Finally, he dropped the spoon, his voice breaking. I can't do it. It's poisoned." Confession slipped like blood from a wound. Ayo started narrating every detail of his treachery, from the bar to the poisoned bowl. King Adegoke listened, his face an inscrutable mask of justice, as he nodded to the guards. Ayo was taken away, his final glance at Jakonde one of venomous contempt. As the king left the detention center, his figure was stoic, the weight of his crown heavier with the knowledge of the betrayal he had nurtured at his side. As Jakonde stood trial before King Adegoke and the village, details of his double life were laid bare. The murmurs grew louder as evidence of his opulent living was presented, pictures of his lavish home eliciting gasps among the onlookers. The couple, who had once spoken so freely of their plans in the local bar, stood among the crowd, their expressions a mix of shock and enlightenment. They realized the folly of their ways, vowing to be more guarded in the future. Tunde, the catalyst for uncovering the truth, was regarded as a hero. His thoughtful vigilance had saved the village from a potentially devastating scheme.